What is going on? It's Alex coming back at you with another video, and today I just want to get you guys out something nice, easy, quick, but still fun because we have yet to review a Chris Sims 2024 NFL mock draft. He did have this on his podcast with Connor Rogers, so we always got to show love for Connor, but let's get right into this. Very exciting. Love being able to talk about mock drafts. It is what it is. The draft is coming up, so we're not going to be able to do it very often, but we're still going to be going through the entire offseason. We're going to be jumping to 2025 right away because that is just what I do. I'm addicted to the draft. What can I say? And I am not in the mood to find a cure for my addiction except for making more videos, which just fuels my addiction. But let's get right into this. Yes, it's not going to be super formal, just like some of the other mock drafts that we mock the mock. But, you know, you can see the Twitter thing. You can see the comments. It's very entertaining. It's just more so here for us to have a good time together. Below my face is my board. You can see all the prospects and how I love them, how I might not. And then below that is all the great ways to get involved in the community with that ticker, as well as taking advantage of our two sponsors, Olipop and UnderDog Fantasy. Feel free to use those codes. Every time you use UnderDog, you get to end up having $10 on your initial deposit, or if you donate funny enough, definitely not donate, but if you deposit $10 up to $100, they match it up to that $100 mark. Sends $50 to your boy, so feel free to do so. We love y'all. But let's get right into this. Starting out with the number one pick, Caleb Williams right here. Caleb's going to be the number one pick. Let's not waste any time doing that. Jayden Daniels, the second quarterback off the board. Obviously, I wanted to talk about this for what happens right here, but we'll discuss that in a second. Jayden, you know, he's the more logical option for Washington based on the system of Cliff Kingsbury. You know, you get to have that extra mobility earlier on. He actually has some anticipatory throws. He increased his catchable throw percentage exponentially from being over 50% and being the number 2 guy in college for the highest uncatchable throw rate, that ASU all the way down to, I mean, there's not even a figure for it because it just doesn't even matter at this point. Like it's not even a non-factor. It is a non-factor, so to speak. So for someone who can actually revolutionize their throwing to that degree is someone who I'm willing to bet my money on. At number 3, we have a trade up. The Vikings move up for JJ McCarthy over Drake Maye. JJ McCarthy, you know, I've talked about this several times, and we're going to have a mock draft that comes out tomorrow with a special guest. But JJ McCarthy essentially, talk about this, but, you know, he keeps an offense in rhythm. He has good mobility. He makes the easy throws, so you don't have to worry about him screwing up something that's already there. And he does have the potential to make those higher level throws. That being said, he is not in my top 3 quarterbacks. But I do see the logic there, absolutely. And, you know, it is something for me to start considering maybe changing my prospect grading scale even more. And that's something that, you know, I'll always do every single year is continue tweaking and tweaking and tweaking until I end up figuring out that I'm having something that is a little bit more consistently working. At pick number 4, Marvin Harrison Jr. goes to the Cardinals. Love that for them. I mean, he's the most complete receiver in the class. This team needs a complete receiver. At pick number 5, Joe Alt goes to the Los Angeles Chargers. I don't know if I trust him at right tackle. That's my only thing. And this is a really deep right tackle class. So I do think that the Chargers could end up actually being able to get a starting caliber right tackle in the middle rounds, not the late rounds, but the higher middle rounds, and rather than having to spend a top 5 pick on it, and end up snagging Malik Neighbors to be able to complement the receiving core. But Joe Alt, never going to fault a team for going offensive line. He just not somebody who I really thought of as a transition to right tackle. At pick 6, Malik Neighbors goes to the New York Giants. I just pray for, you know, Malik Neighbors getting 3 targets and 9 yards every single game, because that's just what Daniel Jones does. It's not that Daniel Jones is a bad quarterback. He just isn't a modern day explosive enough, consistent enough NFL quarterback for continued consistent success. And you have Drake Maye on the board, obviously that. But if JJ McCarthy's on the board, I'm going that as well. Like, the ceiling is just not there for Daniel Jones. And the NFL, if the goal is actually to not only just win games, but to win a Super Bowl, you need to have a little bit of a ceiling there. And it just has not been there for Daniel Jones. At pick 7, J.C. Latham ends up being the pick for the Tennessee Titans. I do worry that he'll end up having to be a guard earlier on. His IQ fluctuates a little too much. He does have that deer in headlights look at points. I think that that's going to be something that ends up being worn away as time goes on. So I do worry about him being actually kicked into guard at the short term. So keep that in mind. I just don't think that's the best move for the Titans. I'd actually go Fashanu over Latham, even though I have a very similar grade on them. I just think the left tackle spot is just even more valuable. At pick 8, Dallas Turner ends up going to the Atlanta Falcons. We have a surprise pick in tomorrow's draft that is a defender, but not Dallas Turner. And I find it very, very interesting. So stay tuned for that because it's a very, very fun segment where we discuss potential options for the Falcons if they do not go edge in the first. Latu ends up going to the Bears at pick 9 over a wide receiver. So I know that Chris Sims is, a little bit out there with some of his takes. So, maybe he's just not the biggest Rome Odunze guy. I can't remember his rankings off the top of my head because I don't he doesn't live rent free in my head. Granted, I do have respect for Chris Sims. This is not to shit on him at all, even though the series is called Mock the Mock. I still think that, he has his own unique opinions. Whether I think of them as great or not is beside my point, but he has some really good takes out there that are very unique, and I respect that. The ultimate thing is he's honest, and that's what matters more than everything because, he brings a unique perspective, and if he's honest, whether or not the whole entire opinion is good, there's still going to be nuggets of truth in there. Latu, even though it's spelled incorrectly, which, again, I shouldn't say shit. It's still a good pick for the Bears. I just would prefer to go after a wide receiver for him. Troy Fautanu goes to the Jets, who's going to end up being a guard in the short run, but a tackle in the long run. I love that insurance plan for them. Of course, Drake Maye goes at pick number 11. That's the big shocker of this all to get impressions, but Drake Maye is someone who has not made those easy throws. I know that there's plenty of people who love Drake Maye. There's plenty of people who hate Drake Maye. I'm a little bit in the middle. I'm a centrist on him. He's in my 20s on my board, but that also, I'm having a tough time factoring in positional value because I'm trying to make it more to my actual grading scale rather than, me putting a grade up and then saying, screw it, I'm going to not factor that in when I build my big board. But Drake Maye does have a lot of inconsistencies that I worry about. He misses the easy throws. It wouldn't jaw drop me to see him slip, but to 11, I would be pretty damn surprised. Bo Nix then goes at pick 12. It does just kind of question why there wouldn't be another trade, but maybe this was the only trade that they ended up making. This is a live reaction if you can't tell. But Bo Nix, I do really like. At pick 12, I would still give this, maybe a B minus, maybe a C plus. I don't think it's incredible value, but I do really like Bo. I actually do have the same grade. Technically, it's higher, but, again, I'm more so at the mercy of my intuition for the quarterback position than my pure grading scale. So I do have Drake Maye a little bit ahead of Bo Nix, even though technically Bo Nix is a higher grade. I just think Bo Nix is a little more consistent, which I don't think many people would disagree with that. It's just people don't see the high-end potential. The best thing about Bo is that he's a hard-ass worker, and he's improved every year of his career. Michael Penix Jr. is at pick number 13 for the Las Vegas Raiders. I'm not that high on Michael Penix Jr. There's some talk of him going up to pick 8, but at the same time, we were talking about Malik Willis potentially being the number 2 overall pick. Let's not get into the reports being something that we fully rely on. Michael Penix does have that shoulder as well as knee concern from, 4 season-ending injuries. And, to be fair, he could end up being a much better quarterback for the Raiders than what they have on their roster. But the Raiders also have plenty of holes that they can fill with really damn good value. At pick 14, you got Byron Murphy going to the Saints. They do need a tackle. I think they'd have to go after a tackle. But if they were to say, screw it, we're not going to go a tackle, Byron Murphy would be the guy I'd draft for them. At 15, Brock Bowers goes to the Colts. He's a super weapon, man. I love him to death. I think that Quinion Mitchell might fit a little bit more, but Brock Bowers is far from a bad option. Either of those picks would be an A+. Speaking of Quinion Mitchell, the Eagles trade up, so I guess there's the trade. So I do think that the Broncos should trade it up. But I see Quinion Mitchell go at pick 16 to the Eagles via a trade up with Seattle. You're getting your true boundary one. I just don't think Howie is going to look for the guy who's a pure boundary after his offseason moves or lack of in that secondary. So going on to the other picks in the first round, you got Nate Wiggins to the Jaguars. Nate Wiggins does have the potential to shut down number one wide receivers. I just do worry about that size, and I just sometimes like a couple of the other guys in this class a little bit more. But Nate Wiggins has grown on me the more and more I saw him. I do think he does have some personality concerns. I think he has a little bit of a prima donna effect to him because I do see him make some fantastic plays and almost reminisce in the moment, stop focusing on the play, and then ends up giving up the play. Maybe that's a little bit of over-analysis, but at the same time, I have a strong faith in my ability to look at corners. So I do think Nate easily could get over that, and maybe that's something I should go back and reevaluate. But Nate Wiggins does have incredible coverage ability. He's a great athlete. It's hard to bet against him. Pick number 18, you got Rome Odunze to the Bengals. Obviously would have been a really good pick for a lot of earlier teams, but this is about where I have Rome on my board. He is 21 on my board right now. Granted, again, I'm probably going to be shifting some things up, but before the final, you gotta love that, right? But Rome Odunze to the Bengals would be a blessing. I don't need to be the one to tell you that. We have a trade up technically after a trade back. The Seattle Seahawks move up to draft Tali Fuaga, where the Rams were. I don't know why the Rams would let the Seahawks end up getting that good of a player at their spot. I would be looking at plenty of other teams that would love it, maybe like the Cowboys, for example. But Tali Fuaga, no doubt in my mind, would be a great pick for the Seahawks. I just think that the Rams would not be ones to enable their in-division rival to get that type of talent. Ola Fashanu going to the Steelers at pick 20. I think that's the best possible pick for us. I really do. I'm praying to God that's in what happens on draft day, but I just highly doubt it. I think that we're shortchanging Olu. At pick 21, we have the Miami Dolphins going Graham Barton. Graham Barton, I just don't think that the Dolphins value offensive line that highly. Their system is designed to make offensive line a lot easier and, kind of take the responsibility more out of the offensive line's hands than any other offensive system in the NFL. I do have a very nice piece coming out on that tomorrow as part of that collab mock draft I'm essentially parroting what my guest, James Foster A to Z, ended up bringing up because it was a amazing level of analysis that opened my eyes. So definitely something that you guys should check out too. Darius Robinson ends up going to the Rams via that trade back to 22. Very intriguing option there. He's a very dominant player who has that positional versatility. He does complement Byron Young if you want to keep him on the outside, even though he's listed at D tackle. I just don't know if I'd really want to keep him as a defensive interior. But he's a good player. I just think it's a little bit early for him. Amarius Mims ends up going to the Patriots at 23. Probably as good as you could probably ask for, besides getting a number one receiver, as being able to get Amarius and Drake Maye. Then you got Tyler Guyton here at pick 24 to the Cowboys. My only concern, because Tyler Guyton's 6'8", there's no hope of actually kicking him to guard in case Tyler Smith actually can play left tackle. And if Tyler Guyton struggles at left tackle, you essentially have to use him as a non-factor. So I don't like that because you don't really have a way to make him valuable in case he has early time struggles. Pick 25, you got Cooper DeJean going to the Packers. It's the easy shoe-in pick. I'm perfectly fine with that. Jared Verse goes to the Buccaneers at 26. He's one of the higher floor players, but he's not somebody who's super duper flashy. Not many teams in the NFL are that desperate to go after a number one edge because there's a lack of positional scarcity in the NFL for starting edge rushers compared to what it was years ago before we had some great draft seasons or great draft years where we had plenty of guys in those classes being really damn talented. Then you got Terrion Arnold going at 27 to the Cardinals. Y'all know I love Terrion Arnold. He's my number 3 player in the class. You guys can see it right here. But it is what it is. I think obviously that's a great pick. Brian Thomas then goes to the Bills. I find it hard to see teams letting these championship level teams snag these top end receivers, but they end up doing it. Obviously, that's a great move. Chop Robinson goes to the Lions. I think the Lions would choose Marshawn Kneeland over Chop Robinson, even though I think Marshawn Kneeland's like almost a guaranteed second at this point. The more I talk to him, there's like hints of him potentially being a first. But, I do think that Chop Robinson is just not a day one guy. I feel like he's one of those players that we will see drop. We ended up seeing Nolan Smith, who was a day one run defender, like really good run defender as well, slip to the end of the first, granted coming off a pectoral tear, but still ended up testing out very, very well. And I think he had better day one impact than Chop Robinson would. So we might be slipping up on the potential slip right there, but who knows? Maybe I'm the one who's wrong there. We'll see literally in a couple days. A.D. Mitchell goes to the Ravens at pick 30. I think that's excellent. Obviously, they're still looking for top-end receiver, even though they put the most capital into that receiving room, probably out of all franchises. Then at pick 31, Roger Rosengarten goes to the Niners. I think that he'll end up being a second-round pick, but his potential flashes are incredible. I wouldn't blame the Niners for going with that pick at 31. Then you got Jerzon Newton ending off the draft at 32. The talent is far better than 32. It's just the potential issues with him being uncoachable that might get him to that spot. But I think Andy Reid and Chris Jones can kick him in the ass and kick him into gear. That is going to be the video. Thank you so much for watching, showing the love you always do. Love y'all. See you on the far side. Peace.